right, guys, who among us hasn't thought about making a game of our own or even competing in our own favorite games? But what if you could do both at the same time? The Ready Games is a platform for doing just that, and now their CEO, David S. Bennahum, is here to tell us all about it. David, thank you so much for joining us.
Well, it's my pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me on.
Of course. So for those of us who aren't familiar, right, start from the top. Give us an introduction to Ready and the Ready Games.
So the Ready Games is a hyper-casual esports platform. We run games 3 times a week on our app, the Ready Games, on both iOS and Android. And you get to compete in a simple hyper-casual game for cash prizes. Typically, the top 20% of the leaderboard will split that cash prize between $2 and $7, depending on where you are on the leaderboard. We also offer subscriptions, and subscribers get their own additional games where they can win more prizes. And what we're trying to do here is really build out esports on mobile, right? It's a really exciting platform and one where esports has yet to really blossom. So with the Ready Games, we've been able to deliver now over 200 original mini games into the app since we released in the last year. And we do all of that with our own proprietary tech. So as you mentioned earlier, it is possible to actually build your own game using the very same tool we use to make our games in the Ready Games. So we have about 1.5 million people around the world who are building games in addition to just playing them on the Ready Games app.
Well, you definitely had us at cash prizes. So can you talk to us a little bit about that? How does the prizing for Ready Games work?
So the way it works is the top 20% of the leaderboard just splits that cash prize. So typically it's $1,000 up in the game, and people will compete for that. Sometimes the prizes are more, sometimes they're less. But at the end of the day, it's really just relative to your score on the leaderboard. And if you make it into that winning circle, you typically are getting anywhere between $2 and sometimes up to $25, depending on how the game is structured. So it's small payouts, relatively speaking, but lots of games. And some of our top players have made over $1,000 actually playing the Ready Games.
So talk to me more about hyper-casual competitive gaming, right? That's the term you are all using to describe the Ready Games. So tell us more about the concept overall and how does it fit into the esports ecosystem?
So there's just such a huge shift right now on mobile, right? Where the #1 growth category now in mobile actually is games. If you look at where apps have headed, there's been a 30% decline in the installing of apps over the last 3 years, but a 50% increase in the installing of game apps. In fact, at this point, gaming is the #1 activity on a phone after just doing the communication stuff. So this is just opening a huge opportunity for all of us to play more games, better games, and finally start competing with each other. And it also speaks to an audience that may not be on console, right? So the origin of esports really is more of a console and a PC experience. As you move into phones, as you see on that little screen share you're doing right now, the kind of games we do, the kind of games people expect to play on a phone, it has to be 1 tap, maybe 2 tap gestures at a time. And so the way we create games has to be really purpose-built for the phone. And on the flip side, the opportunity is to have millions of people ultimately involved in these hyper-casual esports without being like these big-name players. It's very democratic. It's very inclusionary. And in that sense, that's a big shift, right? Where the difficulty of winning, in a sense, opens up on phones where more people can have that experience and maybe in a high-powered desktop or console environment.
Yeah, we've had so many discussions about mobile gaming, how obviously over in China, Asia, it's very predominant, but it's starting to build up a lot more here in the US, especially in the esports component. Do you feel that the hyper-casual approach can legitimize this sector as an esport in the mainstream and even more so in the United States?
It's just a question in a way of following where people are today. There's something like $65 billion a year now being spent on hyper-casual games or casual games, of which maybe close to 20 billion is just in the United States. I mean, that's an astonishing amount of money. So we don't really need to legitimize it. It's already legitimized itself. In a sense, what we're doing now is we're just unblocking that opportunity for people to just compete more, play more. But they're leading the way. In a sense, we're following. I mean, the market is there. We're basically giving that market this opportunity to just do more on their phone and play more. But it's super exciting to be in this market, given its massive size.
Yeah, it's super exciting to see where it's going and where it's headed as computing size, just the amount of things that you can do on a phone just exponentially grows year after year. David S. Bennahum, thank you so much for joining us today and talking about the mobile game ecosystem.
Thank you. Great to be here and look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you.
No problem.
All right, guys, we're taking a quick break, and when we're back, we're going to find out how Counter-Strike went from a mod of Quake to a phenomenon worldwide in our esports anthology, and then we're talking Rainbow Six with G2 Esports' Pengu. You're watching Cheddar Esports, and we'll be right back.